Welcome to the Lessons from the Game podcast, the podcast where we break down the hard-hitting lessons from rugby and show how they apply performance, mindset and resilience, both on and off the field.
I'm Ben Pegna, and alongside Gurthro Steenkamp, we sit down with top players, coaches and experts to uncover what it really takes to succeed.
Hi everybody, welcome to our podcast, Lessons from the Game. I'm here with my co-host, Ben Pegna. Ben, good to see you, brother. How are you doing?
Yeah, good, G. How you doing? You okay?
Brilliant, man. Bit knackered. It's been a long day, been grafting, and still the players are not listening to us, but that's another story on its own. But I do believe you had an interesting day tonight, didn't you?
Yeah, the lads that I'm coaching had a match this afternoon, which was good. A lot of lessons from that game, a lot to learn. You forget how much the kids, there's so many learning opportunities. 15-year-olds playing a cup match. It was a semi-final, so it was a tough game for the lads today. It was good weather. It didn't rain. It started cold, but it was okay. The referee was actually okay. He was actually South African, funny enough. But yeah, the kids came out on the wrong side of the result, but they learned a lot. There was so many. I find when I'm coaching that age group, especially, there are so many things that you want to instill and tell them, but you don't want to tell them because you want them to learn from experiencing them. And one of the things I wanted to talk to them about, for example, was I know there's going to be a load of mistakes. And you know what it's like as a coach. You can tell in the warm-up where the players are at. Are they tuned in? Do they feel, are they intimidated? Are they confident? Are they energetic? Yeah. Are they enthusiastic? And so I was just like, I let it go. But there were a couple of things. So I'm hoping that, in the wash at the next session, we'll have a good conversation and they'll come up with some stuff and what they could have done better and what they learned. And yeah, so hopefully progress.
Oh, they're still young. It's a learning curve. I mean, that's why we as coaches, we give it our all. That's why we are passionate about it. And, it kind of ties in nicely to what we want to talk about tonight. We're actually mulling about before this episode. We were brainstorming and, we as coaches, we want to do things well. We want to evolve. But I think a topic which you love, and I love the phrase, and you need to correct me, it's like talent gets you in the room, but it doesn't keep you there. And we've seen a lot of rugby players, whether they're professional or semi-pro, doesn't really matter. And some players just don't get it. But would you like to elaborate on that?
Yeah, thanks, G. Yeah, it's a big topic, but also it's very simple. Quite often in life you'll get an opportunity, and in all arenas, whatever you're doing. But let's talk about rugby because we love rugby and we're rugby people. It gets you in the room. It gets you the opportunity. It gets you on the field. The coach wants to see you. They've seen something in you. But then what you do after that point decides whether you stay in the room, whether you stay in the conversation, whether you stay on the field or in the team. Do you work hard? Are you coachable? Are you a great teammate? All those things. Are you disciplined? Do you turn up on time? All those beautiful things that we love about rugby that have either been instilled in us or we've learned from the game. That decides what then happens from that point. That filters people.
No, it's 100%. As a coach, I've seen so many talented players. They have the skill set, they got the talent, but they're not always performing consistently because they're not willing to put in the work. All right. At the end of the day, in elite performance, we want players and athletes to be consistent. That means they got to put in the graft. They need to put in the hard yards. If I take myself, when I was a young player, I wasn't the most talented, but I might have had a superpower. And my superpower was my size. I was still born when meat was still cheap. So I was good. I could run through guys, but at some stage, like you just mentioned, it's like talent got me in the room. Like I was fortunate enough, I went to a great school. I went to Paul Boys High. The standards were very high. And as I grew older, I realized that there were other players just as strong as me, just as talented as me, and that I knew that I had to work. And I think that's where a lot of players, we've seen players with unbelievable abilities. You take Brian Abana. I played with him. I was there at Twickenham when he had touched the rugby ball for the first time in a South Africa Springbok jersey. He scored a try against England and he had this unbelievable pace. That was his talent, but he backed it up with hard work. He was consistent. He went above and beyond. And we actually saw how he took the game to another level. He became the real first ultimate professional.
Mm.
I don't know what your thoughts on that.
I love that. Yeah, I love that. You know what? As soon as you said that, you know what I thought? I just thought humility. Because without humility, you basically you think you're complete. Whereas when you're in that, you've got that humility. Your willingness to learn, to develop, to take ideas on board. You know, I also think it's really important for young players. I say this often to them. You need to filter. You need to be able to filter, because you will get a lot of different bits of advice. Everybody will give you advice. The guy in the corner, the corner shop, this guy, this coach, your old coach, your parents, the other kids, oh, you're not strong enough. You're not fast enough. And you need to be able to take on board stuff, but filter at the same time as well. But when you talk about Brian Habana, always working on his game, and that humility is that springboard that means, I'm not complete, but I can learn, I can improve, I can get a bit better day by day. And when you're consistent and you apply those things that he's taught and that he's filtered, that's when you see really good, consistent performers year on year, isn't it? I think of Peter Steph the toy now, consistent performer, just constantly grafting, constantly improving, trying to get better and better. And I can think of a load of other players, but, he's just one, World Player of the Year. So good example.
But, Ben, I think that's the key thing for us, because in our audience, we got young rugby players or aspiring rugby players or players trying to go to the next level. And it takes me back. I listened to an unbelievable podcast with Saint Bolt, and it was great. When he started out, he was lightning fast. And when he started competing with the senior athletes, quickly he realized, you know what? These guys are faster than me. I've got the talent, but if I want to level up my speed, I need to put in the work. And his journey was amazing, because even then he started working hard and he started seeing improvements. And then there was a stage, he kind of slowed it down. He even says it. He started enjoying the social life, going out and about, sometimes skipping training. And then he went to the Olympics, and correct me, Ben, you're more knowledgeable than me, but that he went to the 2004 Olympics, I think, and nobody even knows that he went, because he was average. He says it. He didn't perform at all. A lot of people don't even know. But then after that, he made a conscious decision to go all out. He made a commitment that he wanted to win 3 back-to-back Olympics, and he did. And that's a massive commitment, 12 years. So he knew he had the talent, he had the speed, but he needed to combine talent with hard work in order to turn his vision into reality. And I think that's what we're trying to get across tonight, with whether it's coaches or players listening. Even as a coach, you can have that talent to be, the game, but you actually got to put the work in. Okay, how am I going to transfer this to the players? How am I going to get it across? Because, there's so many great examples on it. And I think where you can even use more insights in the corporate space.
Well, yeah, and that's the funny thing. I was driving the other day, and I was having this call with somebody, and my youngest son Daniel was listening, and we talked about it afterwards, and we talked about, because I talk about this type of stuff all the time, and yeah, I know, and we were just saying, well, it's exactly the same as like in sport and as in rugby, the talent and will get you there, but then you need to graft and put in the hard work to make sure you stay there. We were talking in the corporate space about people trying to sell stuff. You can get in front of people. You can get in front of the buyers in the supermarkets if you're selling, say, a drink. You can get in front of them. You can find them on LinkedIn. You can get in front of them. But then it's what you do then. How do you prepare for the presentation? What are they really interested in? What are they looking for? What innovation points? What are the metrics that they're looking for? What's the key What's the key criteria? So it's the same principle. It's just how am I going to differentiate myself as a product or as a business person? How can I gain their attention? And how then can we support them going forward? If we're talking about selling to Carrefour, for example, a supermarket as a drink, if I'm in business, I'm thinking they're going to take it on trial. It's a new drink. It's a nice drink. I can convince them to take it on trial. They'll take it in 2 stores. but how do I make sure it sells? How do I incentivize the supermarket to want to push it and promote it? And for example, and that's just a rudimentary example, but it's the same principle. The talent can get you in the room, it can get you in the conversation, but then what do you do to stay in that conversation, to stay in the moment, to stay in the arena, to really become a consistent performer?
Yeah, it resonates a lot with me because it reminds me, when I retired, Ben, and I referred this to a lot of podcasts and a lot of Instagram videos and social media posts that I've done in the past. It was a dark period in my life where I've kind of like lost my identity, but I knew I had this natural talent to speak in front of people, doing team building. I loved it. I was a leader. I inspired my teams. It takes me back to the days when I was with the Bulls. I would get the guys up. I would get them pumped up. And I knew I had a talent for this. And I've done team building sessions before. I had a knack for that. I was complimented on, done it in the corporate space. But there was a stage after rugby when I had to start pitching to companies, pitching my services. And that's when I realized I got the talent to actually present, do my team building sessions well, inspire people, but I was shit at actually pitching myself. When directors were, okay, so what is this going to bring to the table? How are you going to give us added value? I was useless. And that's when I had to start working on my actual pitch. I had the talent. My talent brought me, they heard I was great at what I was doing. But when I was presenting or pitching to them for my services, that I was not that good at it. And it took some time, took practice in front of the mirror. It took practice with friends, pitching to my friends. So what do you think? What's your feedback? And I just did this the other day as well, just something different. I have this new idea, which I'm brainstorming. I pitched it to a mate of mine and he worked it with me. But like, you can have all the talent in the world, you can have all the skill set, but combine that with hard work, it's everything. And the result of that, being persistent and working, and unfortunate for me, COVID happened. But before COVID, I had like 8 seminars lined up in 1 month. And that was the consequence of hard work. That wasn't just because of the talent I had to present in the corporate space. That was a combination of cold calling, email, going to meetings, meeting people. It's a culmination of a lot of things.
And I think that's awesome, how you explain that. And I think one of the key things there is the reflection, because you have setbacks and then you have reflection points and moments, and then you go again and you have a new iteration, and again, that's applicable in loads of walks of life, in loads of industries, loads of sectors. But obviously in sport, because a classic example, you get in the room, you get in the conversation, and, how many times have you and I heard, oh, my face didn't fit with the coach, because,
yeah.
and it's, and maybe you need to go away and look at yourself and how do you come across? Am I really a good team player? Am I, I'm going away and I've got my personal development plan, and it's all about me. Maybe actually it's the fact that I'm not even considering how it affects the team dynamic and all these other things. So when you went away, that's really insightful and a really good lesson for guys,
Yeah, I think what the biggest thing we need to clarify, Ben, is like for our audience, because what is hard work? It's easy to say, okay, you need to work hard, but what is that? I'll give you my point of view. Hard work is willing to do what is necessary in order to achieve your desired result. If I want to become and that was me when I knew I had the talent, I had this a basic skill set, I had to work harder on certain areas. But in order to, I knew I had to become stronger, I had to become fitter, I needed to level up in my intelligence on the game, rugby intelligence. I needed to level up on that. So what did that mean? I went to my S&C coach. I asked him, tell me what I need to do to become strong on the rugby field. What do I need to do to become fitter? All right. Went to my coach as well, asked him which areas I need to work on. And I built my weekly template with all that information. And my week was designed for me. And I knew in order to perform on the weekend and to have sustainable performance, I needed to work hard. And it meant sometimes doing 3 to 4 sessions a day. It meant sometimes me analyzing my own games late at night or doing extra work-ons with a coach. So hard work doesn't always mean you're going guns blazing from 6 in the morning till 6 in the evening, killing yourself physically and mentally. It's not that. It's just putting in the work so that you can actually have that sustainable performance and be able to do what is expected of you on the field, because you can be the fastest guy on the rugby field, the strongest guy on the rugby field. But if after 5 minutes you are dead, what then?
Yeah.
You understand?
Mate, it's a really good one, because hard work, and when I think about it, there's so many different definitions. And, one of them is probably doing stuff you don't want to do. Doing the stuff that will make you better, but it's actually not what you want to do, and I think back at some of the stuff, actually some of the hardest times were, and another thing actually, I remember my dad used to say to me, concentrate on your strengths, but you're only as strong as your weakest link, in it, like the chain, so if you can't tackle on one side, there's only a certain amount of time, before that becomes a glaring, weakness. So identifying those things and being willing to work on the stuff that's not glamorous, that's not pretty, that's not what anybody sees, quite often, I suppose that's another key element of hard work. I think it's the stuff away in the shadows, Muhammad Ali had a really good quote, he used to talk about people don't see it's away from the lights, it's on the road and the gym somewhere in the shadows, it's in the darkness, nobody sees the preparation. And it's that type of hard work, I think, that goes a long way.
Work in the dark so you can shine in the light.
Muhammad Ali would be happy with you, man. Yeah.
Yeah, I think what we're trying to share to our listeners is that, okay, you got a talent, that's great. I think the next question you need to ask yourself is, where are you going with that? What do you want to do with it? All right, you can be a talented rugby player, talented athlete. So, and it comes back to a lot of the conversations we've had in the past. What is your dream? What is your vision? And what is your plan? And you got to execute that plan, because in order to improve in certain areas, and what I'll just add in there as well, is identifying the key areas you need to work on. You just mentioned there, like, what are your strengths, but also working on your weaknesses. And I think also for the younger players, they also need to be very careful. Sometimes we tend to focus only on improving our weaknesses and we forget completely about our strengths. I always like to say, work on your weaknesses, but amplify your strengths. So to summarize that is definitely, okay, you got a talent. What is your dream? What's your vision? Okay, what do you want to do with it? And what is your plan? I think that's something that players need to ask themselves.
Yeah, and I love that about amplifying your strengths, because as we've spoken about in the past, it's so important to know what your strengths are, and bring them to the team, bring them to the fore, because that's what's going to get you picked and selected in the team. Maybe actually a really good starting point is to do a personal audit and maybe ask the coach, do you think I work hard? Because I've come across a lot of players, both when I was playing and when as a coach, and they think they're working hard. And I nearly fall off my chair, it's like, it's just like, and I'm trying to be kind or whatever. And I'm thinking, you don't do anything else outside here, but we've got different, and that's a really important one. As a coach, you might be in the arena, you're having the opportunity in the change room, but you and the coach might be on completely train tracks that are parallel, but on different rails, because they think you're not even pulling your weight and you think you're working hard. And then maybe that's a good starting point to have that audit and check in with some advisors like that, coach.
No, I think that's great. I think, what you're touching base, it reminds me, I always say sometimes players have Instagram reality. So always like sometimes they have this perception or this point of view of how well they've played versus reality. So I always tell players, make sure that your perception is calibrated with reality or with the truth.
Yeah.
I think that's very important. But Ben, we can go on and on. I think we've made our point clear that talent alone gets you in the room, but it won't keep you there. And it's so important to back it up with hard work, with discipline, commitment. And I think definitely for those of you listening, if there's anything that you would like us to deep dive a bit more into, but what we spoke about, just to remind you, these are bite-sized episodes, just for you to have a quick listen on your way to the gym or on your way to school or uni or wherever you go, on your way to the store, hopefully not on the way to McDonald's or KFC. You can. There's always a time and a place for everything. But Ben, anything you would like to add before we sign off?
Keep working hard, people. That's it. Keep up the hard work and keep chasing those goals.
Or like my former coach used to say, Franz Ludic at the Bulls, you got to keep on keeping on.
Beautiful.
Cheers, guys.